Right now in Washington, President Biden and the First Lady are hosting world leaders as they close out day 2 of the NATO summit with a White House dinner. It comes after a busy day of high-stakes meetings for the president. Earlier today, Biden welcomed NATO allies, held a bilateral meeting with the new British Prime Minister, and participated in a working session where he spoke about the importance of unity and the strength of the alliance.
This new pledge sends an unmistakable message to the world that every NATO member is committed to doing their part to keep the alliance strong. We can and will defend every inch of NATO territory, and we'll do it together.
But looming over all of this is Donald Trump and the international fear that someone who has sided with our enemies, praised dictators, and said he would encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want to any NATO member country that didn't pay enough, could potentially return to the White House. Joining me now is former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired 4-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is the Chief International Analyst for NBC News. It's always a pleasure, Admiral Stavridis. Let me play for you last night, just as a form of contrast. We just heard President Biden. Here's Donald Trump last night.
I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much before, but it didn't take me long to figure it out, like about 2 minutes. And the first thing I figured out was they weren't paying. I said, you have to pay your bills. They said, sir, may I ask you a question? If we don't pay our bills, will you protect us from Russia? I said, you mean you're delinquent? They said, yes, we're delinquent. Let's say we're delinquent. Would you protect us? I said, no, I will not protect you from Russia.
Why ever would NATO members fear that?
It's so outrageous. He thinks of NATO completely incorrectly as some kind of protection racket, where the United States demands a certain amount of money and then we provide protection. It's like he would say as a mafia boss to a small country, hey, you've got a nice little country here. It would be terrible if something happened to it. Hey, newsflash, and you know this, Joy, that's not how NATO works. It is an alliance. We all contribute together. And can I just do the numbers for a minute? United States, largest defense budget in the world. Second largest defense budget in the world, the Europeans, collectively. Their collective defense budget is bigger than China. And secondly, they share our values of democracy. And third and finally, we're the United States, 25% of the world's gross domestic product. Europe is another 25%. So when you put us together, it's money, guns, lawyers, values. We really want to be in this alliance. It's not a protection racket. Donald Trump needs to go to school on NATO.
And the last time that the Article 5 was used, it was used for us. It was after 9/11 when NATO countries came to our aid and died for us in Afghanistan. There is this Washington Post reporting that NATO is moving to Trump-proof the alliance. What does that mean, and how could they do that?
What they are talking about is simply raising their defense budgets, and I agree with that. Currently, the goal for all NATO countries is to spend 2% of gross domestic product on defense. 23 of the 32 countries are currently doing that. They all need to get there. The reason they're rising in their contributions is not because of Donald Trump and his threats. It's because of Vladimir Putin. They're waking up to the challenges on their eastern border. And I want to go back to something you said a moment ago, Joy. The only time this alliance has been activated in combat is when we were attacked after 9/11. And I commanded the alliance for 4 years. I signed hundreds of letters of condolence to the nations of NATO, not from the United States, whose sons and daughters died in Afghanistan because we were attacked. They contributed blood and treasure. We ought to cherish them. This is a valued alliance.
Indeed. Let me play Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And here is what he said about our upcoming election in November.
Now everyone is waiting for November. Americans are waiting for November in Europe, Middle East, in the Pacific, the whole world is looking to autumn, looking to November. And truly speaking, Putin awaits November 2. It's time to step out of the shadows, to make strong decisions work, to act and not to wait for November or any other month to this end. We must be strong and uncompromising.
What happens to that brave young man and his country if Donald Trump becomes president and, makes good on his threats?
Can I say I love Volodymyr Zelenskyy? This guy stood up and delivered for his nation, for NATO, for the alliance against Putin. We ought to cherish Volodymyr Zelenskyy. What happens if Trump is elected is not a good thing. Trump has been pretty clear that he does not value their fierce loyalty, their fierce courage. And I, for one, hope that whoever is elected, they will stand behind Volodymyr Zelenskyy. I worry if it's Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, he could not possibly value courage because he doesn't have it. And when you don't have it yourself, it's kind of hard to value it in someone else. I'll say that that's me, not you saying that, because you're a much nicer person than I. Retired Admiral James Stavridis, one of our favorites. Thank you so much, sir.